Hello. Hi, I'm Therese. My business is called Small Business Collaborative. I work mainly on the brand side, so the people supplying the high street, and I help them with strategy and how to sell and pricing and how to market their products to retailers. So that's me.
My name's Louise. I run Buy From, which is a creative agency specialising in retail and consumer gifts. And I'm also part of the National Committee for the Gift Association, as is Therese. So a lot of the work that I do is around customer experience, brand story, and we have a real passion for place and high street. So we do a lot of work in that space, which we're going to talk about today as well. So thank you very much for our compact and bijou audience. So the plan today is for us to talk about something we're really passionate about, which is how businesses can adapt to the changing landscape on the high street. And that's everything from consumer behaviour, in-store retail experiences, technology, data, sustainability. So all of those things that are now manifesting to create a completely different landscape for retailers, and how those trends are shaping and what you can do to try and engage with those. So starting off, we want to talk a little bit about, give you an overview of that changing landscape and what those transformation drivers really are. We've been speaking a lot about changing consumer behaviours. What have you noticed in the work that you've been doing?
I think, COVID changed everything for so many of us, but also it was already going that way, I think. I think that online is obviously becoming such a key part of it, but it needs to be more blended now. And I think coming back after the pandemic, it's even more important to create experiences because people can shop from the comfort of their sofa. So how do we get them out of their sofa? And that is because they want personal experience, personal service. They want to connect to people. They want to experience things. When you go into London now, like in the evening, Soho is so busy. People want to be out and about again. So to get them to go into the shops too, we need to rely more heavily on experiences, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, that kind of transition in consumer behaviour post-COVID was very much around, now we've got transparency, people wanting to really understand what your story is, what the ethos is. This is where sustainability plays a really key part. Even if you're not in that sustainable space, what are your ethos? What do you stand by? How transparent are you in terms of being able to communicate with your customer? And kind of other key drivers are obviously economic shifts. Nobody owes you a sale. It's far harder to get a retail sale now than it's ever been, and it probably will continue to be harder. So getting your customer to give you their hard-earned money and buy a product that is not a need product but a wish product is becoming increasingly harder. So one of the things that we're going to kind of explore today are the different ways in which you in your retail store can actually engage with those customers, tell your stories much more effectively and drive sales as a result, because there's still masses of opportunity out there. And part of it is this kind of any negative language around kind of high streets and retail is really damaging. And actually what we need to do is really be countering that, because there is still huge opportunity for growth and huge opportunity for sales. We've just got to find the right way to engage with your customer and speak their language. And obviously technological advancements are playing a key part, aren't they? You've seen loads of that, haven't you?
Yeah, I think there's so many different ways and we have a lot to say about it, I think. But, things like in-store experiences combined with your online experience. I see shops do live events in their stores and go do them live on Instagram at the same time. And there's a lot more blended of an approach, and technology allows us to do that. People can walk into a shop now and there can be tags in different areas where they fed information onto their phone that could be about their value or how that product is made. And I think we're going to see a lot more of that. There's now smart mirrors where you go into the fitting room and the size is not good. You can press a button and request someone to bring you a different size. So we're going to see more and more technology And I think even small retailers can get on board with the technology, but use it differently than the big budget guys.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a big area for us to really focus on initially is around values, being values led, and what that sustainability might look like and what your brand story is. And if you're thinking about where the challenges are, and actually seeing a challenge that you might get in terms of getting that sale, is actually an opportunity for you to actually achieve that sale by telling your story more, by actually understanding what is it that's stopping that person from purchasing from you, and how you can make your story a lot clearer. And something that we both feel really strongly about, and it's a big part of what I do in my job, and a big part of what Therese does as well, is about really starting with your story, what your values are, what your ethos is, and how that over anything else differentiates you from your competitor. And starting to lead with those brand stories, and actually understanding that, if you're not on that sustainable journey already, that your conscious consumer is going to demand that you're going down that route. And if your customer is not the Shein customer, is not the fast fashion customer, is not somebody that's expecting it necessarily to arrive the next day, is not that quick fix. If your customer is somebody who's thinking about that purchase, who cares about the purchase and cares about what your story is and what you're selling, then you've got to really own that space and start to talk about that. So can we talk a little bit about sustainability and about the journey? And I know you've got some really good examples, not only for big business and smaller businesses, that have really kind of made those statements. So businesses that are doing good, and how that leads to sustainable growth commercially as well.
Yeah, I think that's super, super important. So I looked up a few to kind of give you a bit of a breadth of different size businesses. On the big scale, you have Patagonia that gives 1% of all their sales to their charities. They also have a resell, reuse kind of program. Of course, the high street has followed with that. But they're big guys that people buy into that brand, and they're willing to pay that bit extra. It's not super cheap, but they're willing to pay that because they know what they're getting. They're getting quality, and they're getting a company that, when possible, make smarter, more sustainable, more ethical choices. It's not all about being sustainable and ethical in every, you can't do everything. You can't be maybe completely plastic free tomorrow, but you can work towards it. And then you have IKEA, and you can say that's fast fashion for the home, but it's not. They have such buying power. The reason why we all have LED lights in our home now is because IKEA decided to stop selling other light bulbs. So there's power in making those decisions, because now they pretty much ended up owning that market for a long time, right? And then on the smaller scale, well, not tiny, but Lucy and Jack, I don't know if people know about them. They started making overalls, and they kind of made them back, come into fashion again. And they do an impact report every year. They list all their factories with the dresses, with exactly where they are. They list how much plastic they use, where they want to be next year, and where they are now, and what the future goals are. So they give that transparency, so although they're not 100% organic yet, their consumer knows how far they've gotten. And on the supply side, we have Talking Tables that do party wear and tabletop and games. And they also do their impact report, and they're now B Corp, and they've done a huge amount of work to become less reliant on single-use plastics, which for a party supply company is pretty impressive, I think. So I think by doing the work and doing it sooner, it's going to serve you in the long run.
To kind of wrap it up, and how that might relate to a shop or a retailer, and bring it back to some of the people that are in the room now, is that we don't have an option to start thinking about how we can make better and smarter choices. At some point, we are going to be forced to do so. So to run a business that's reactive to that rather than being proactive is going to take you longer to engage with the the way that our customers are changing, and also is going to kind of really prevent growth, because it's much harder to start to implement those things further down the line, and you'll be competing so much more. And the other thing about thinking about the benefit of making smarter, more sustainable choices and what that can do to bring people into the high street and have conversations is it starts to sit right at the heart of your brand. So actually your brand story, your reason why, and the choices that you're making are ways in which you engage customers. And therefore, if you're a gift shop, for example, you can start to have conversations when people come through the door about the choice of supplier that you've bought in, or the stories that sit behind the brands. And part of that, it's not just about sustainability, it's also about kind of, I suppose, moral and ethical stories and choices that you're making, and the decisions that you're doing, and what that allows you to do in terms of your own marketing and your own sales strategies to reach more customers and to grow in that way. So seeing it as an opportunity, and a huge sustainability is such a big topic, and it's a bit meaningless to a lot of people because it's too big to really understand. But actually, if you start to break it down and just start to think about your own choices and where those can be smarter, and then how you can use those decisions to communicate and sell your own business and your own products, you start to have a whole strategy that takes you forward. So they're directly linked to commercial growth.
I think that it also means, we all need content nowadays, right?
Yeah.
Whether we want to or not, we are all becoming content businesses. And by sharing about why you picked a supplier over another, why you bought in that product over another, that is a story for you to share. The stories doesn't have to be big. They can be small and little, and it can be down to the detail that you picked this candle supplier because they use these types of wicks. And I think there's still an opportunity there to get like a higher basket value by bringing in sustainable products, which is also going to affect your bottom line, of course.
And it's the same if you're a supplier. These are the same things. The stories that sit behind your brand are really important, that you educate your retailers with it. It works the other way around as well, and empower retailers to tell your story. An example being, we went into, I like to buy from my local high street, went into a shop, and as I walked into the shop, it was Sanjay Spice Kitchen. I don't know if it's a brand they're actually exhibiting over in the autumn fair. But actually, I went in, and the shopkeeper was like, Louise, I've got to tell you about this brand. That's really amazing. It's a family business. He runs it with his mum. It's really sustainable from the kitchen. The whole story. She knew the whole story, the hand-woven saris and the narrative and the sustainability and the family business. And she cared so much, and she just really wanted me to buy the spice tins. I wasn't there for spice tins, I was there for a card, which was very disappointing for her, but it was really... And then 2 days later, I went to another town to see a client of ours who runs a deli, walked into the shop, had exactly the same experience. Oh, I've got to tell you about these spice tins, Louise, come in. And he literally told me the same story. And I was like, that's the power of the stories. You're empowering, you're working really closely. So as a retailer, make choices about the suppliers that you have in based on their stories, their passion, their vision, and connect it all, because that allows you then to really speak with passion to your customers, and it just becomes that it's really stories that are gonna help you really engage and grow.
And I guess if you're a supplier, really think about how you can educate your retailers as well. What materials can you provide them to educate them? Obviously, you can talk to the buyer, but you may not be able to talk to their Saturday girl or person. So you have to think about how can that training happen and be passed down, because they're so passionate about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know a lot of businesses have really struggled with the rise of e-commerce and how that challenges. And if you've got a bricks and mortar retail space, what's your relationship with e-commerce and online? And I know that's been quite disruptive for a lot of retailers. And we were talking, I'm over in the Ambiance Clinic over in Hall 7, and we were talking to a retailer about that impact of certain customers making decisions where they come into a store, they browse, they touch, they feel, they have that sensory interaction with the product, and then they go back home, put it back, say goodbye, and go back and look for that product online. Okay, so that's a real problem in terms of customer behavior. It's a small percentage of customers, but it is a problem, and it's something to be aware of. So it's thinking about when those people are in those stores, like how is that purchasing experience with you in that moment? How much are you engaging them? The compulsion to buy is really important. Or even suggest, if they're walking out, that you alert them to your own e-commerce platform if you do have one. So you're still trying to close the circle and keep the sale with yourself. But there's been other disruptions. Do you want to talk a little bit about yours? A lot of your businesses that you work with are kind of trying to look at wholesale changes and marketplaces and that kind of impact.
Well, yeah, there's always, of course, I'm sure everyone has heard about, or maybe you haven't, Faire.com. I think they're one of the show sponsors this year. But they are basically a Etsy for retail buyers. So brands can list their products on there, retail buyers can go and buy on there. That is a change that has happened, but it also makes that what has happened because of it is that relationship we used to have when we come to a show, we talk to our suppliers, or as a supplier, we talk to our buyers, and we can share our passion very easily because we're in front of each other, has kind of become something we have to do online as well now. So you need to adapt to that and think about how can I show them just how passionate and how great my products are through a screen. And I think it's really important to remember, even if we become more and more into like trading online with each other, that we still need to have a personal relationship. There's value in connecting in person. So if you're a buyer, there's a value to, picking up the phone and speaking to your suppliers and hearing about the products and hearing about the stories about how they've been created. But if you're a supplier, you need to take that experience to your buyer somehow, whether that is by providing videos that they can display on their social media and helping them share your values and your story by providing the content for them, because they're not all going to be able to do it themselves.
If you've got a bricks and mortar retail space, that actually you can use your own website to actually tell the stories of your space. So you can still sell online, but actually you're encouraging people to visit you and to cross over that threshold by talking about having kind of customer stories or showcasing new displays or making them excited about what it might be to cross over the threshold. And you actually use your digital platforms to actually celebrate what the physical retail space actually looks like. And in so doing that, you can start to kind of drive energy. And you want to be able to use online, whether that's social media or websites and the e-commerce, to actually try and ultimately use that to support the growth of your bricks and mortar, rather than seeing it as something that sits separately or something that challenges it or something that undermines it in any kind of way. It's absolutely got to be there as one part of the parcel. And actually, if you're going to be able to reinvest into your bricks and mortar space with new advertising, with new projects, new products that you want to bring in, that constant need to invest in physical spaces and to do the kind of in-store customer experience is that we're going to go on and talk about in a minute. Well, really your e-commerce can help you with your cash flow to drive that. So rather than seeing that as an opportunity to actually go, well, I'm less interested in that because it's online and I like to be with the person. But actually the role of this is to tell my stories, to direct people to the in-store experience, and to drive cash flow so that I can invest in my physical space, which is where the passion really is. But you do need an omni-channel marketing strategy, because that's the reality of the world that we live in. And I think high streets are, very location dependent as well, and often are seasonally dependent. So actually you need to protect yourself and protect your growth by having other ways of driving revenue and encouraging people to know your brand and what you stand for. Which takes us on to experience-led retail.
Yeah. I think that's very, very important. I'm sure you've seen, or maybe you have hosted them in your stores. There's been more and more experiences obvious experience like workshops, craft workshops, that sort of thing. And people are very much willing. You might be hard to get them to come in and buy more than a card in your shop sometimes, but they're happily pay 30, 40, 50 pounds for an experience that they can tell all their friends about and leave with a project that they completed. So I think that's one part of experience that has become more and more popular, I feel, that even smaller retail stores can do quite easily. And small retail stores has started it, I feel, and then the bigger guys has continued it. So, Anthropology has an events person in every store. Battersea Power Station, all through the summer, they've been running craft workshops and, big screen TVs in Colstrop Shard with cinemas. And there's so much more that needs to be done to keep the customer in your space.
Yeah. And the other thing to think about is like when was the last time you really interrogated what that crossing the threshold into your retail space actually feels and looks like, and thinking about it in terms of a sensory experience. So what's the flow like around the shop? Like, what are you prioritizing? What are you doing with your window displays? Do you have candles or diffusers? Is there a smell that entices people in? And it's sometimes like when you're thinking about, I've got beautiful products and I'm displaying them in a beautiful way and I've now got to try and get customers in to buy them, it's actually thinking much more about, those really the senses are the ways in which people really go, oh, it's really lovely in here, and oh, what's that smell, and oh, I really like that, and doesn't that look, and suddenly they're touching things and they're smelling things and they're emotionally connected to your space and to what you've got to offer. And it's when they start to emotionally and connect in a sensory way as well, then you have loyalty, because they want to come back again because they felt something. And quite often, we like selling can feel quite cold, the notion of selling. And, Therese, there's a lot around kind of authentic selling and what that means. But sometimes you can sell by creating a space that is inspiring and, and connects really on a deeper level. And people are like, that, don't be ridiculous. I've got a shop and I'm making it look pretty. It is more than that. And that everything from, that crossing over a threshold, they have given you something by making that step in. So what do you give them, and how do you hold them in your space the moment that they have committed to crossing the threshold? There is, on the Autumn Fair website, there's an ambience playbook that Stephen Spencer and Associates have done that talks a lot about this. It's a free resource through that Hive put together, which I'd recommend, which is all about really understanding how the senses. But it's the simple things. Your in-store experience doesn't necessarily need to be an event, although those things really draw people in. But you may not be practical for some of the shops, the retailers that are around.
I think you can do some parts of it. So I go to Korea quite a bit, and I think that they are so much ahead with this in-store experience and the sensory thing that you talked about. Every single shop I go into in Korea smells amazing. It just smells amazing. And I've gone in and bought things. I once walked around a shopping mall for half an hour to find a diffuser, because the whole shopping mall smelt of this one diffuser, and it smelled like spring and grass and everything. It's now in my car and in all my rooms at home. It was wonderful. But, I walk into this tiny shop, very tiny. They had one big diffuser with a fan behind it. That's all they did. The door was open. It just filled such a space and it drew me in. I also went and bought a hand cream for the same reason.
Yeah.
So that's now on my desk.
Yeah, it can't be underestimated, like just rethinking what that sensory experience is for your customers and the little things that you can do to kind of really make a difference. Like even if you've got, a bowl of like like sweets or something, obviously wrapped up, because otherwise that's weird and a bit minging. But you know, you've got something that you can give them to, so that they really are just going on a sensory journey with you. And suddenly they've spent longer in there. They're enjoying being in there. They're browsing things, and they probably end up purchasing something they didn't intend to purchase. You know, the diffuser or the hand cream or whatever it is, as well as the card that they might have gone in to look for, because you've held them, and that experience cannot be replicated online. It cannot be. And that's the experience that people tell other people about. I've got to tell you about this shop I went into. It was really beautiful. Oh my God, it smelled amazing. And they gave me free sweets. It was excellent. You must go, you must go. Those are your ambassadors. They're the best possible marketing you can ever get, is somebody who's come into your shop and gone, oh my God, it was so lovely. You've got to go in. I'm going to take you there next time we go. Those are the people that you want to capture. That's where your retention and your growth and your loyalty. And then if you're then also capturing moments where you can connect with them on social, reminding them we're on social media, we'd love to hear from you. Do tell other people about it. Follow us. Like, bring them into a community. So, and it's all from a place of, you know, of experience at the heart. And that's where real kind of longevity and loyalty really starts to kind of grow.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about a few cases. I'm conscious of time. I'm being careful.
Oh,
We won't do some, a bit conscious of time. We'll go get carried away. I suppose there's a few examples. We've spoken about them, of stores that are doing it really well and doing it in different ways. And we've spoken about the stories and retailers and some examples about experience. I'll talk about Lock 29 in a minute. Do you want to give some examples first? Because there's some really nice examples.
I was at Battersea Power Station the other day, and they have really, they draw people in with their heritage and with their events, but they are really all about experience and being a community hub. And I think that is like, you know, your store is your community hub of all your other sales channels, whether that is Instagram, TikTok shop, or if you have a brick and mortar store. And I think, so you can take that example and model it similarly without spending as much as Battersea Power Station. But they also do things, so they work with having smaller brands in there. You have a curated maker stores which stocks 40 independent local makers from London or the London area. They have I think Black Pound Day market in there. They have Salad Day market in there, where they bring in even more makers and they make it more personal, because they know these makers come there and they share their brand story, they share their passion, they talk about it. They have a huge reach together online. So people talk about Battersea Power Station. The Battersea Art Hotel that is connected with this power station, they do workshops in there. They have an art residency in there. So it's spaces and businesses are becoming so much more than just somewhere where you go and shop.
And high streets, like really getting communities to work collaboratively, so not seeing your own kind of shop or space in isolation to everybody else that's around, because that actually connectivity and collaboration really lead to creative opportunities to engage whole communities with where you're at and why it's special. You know, location really is a driver to success. But you can work, if that can be a struggle sometimes, you can work proactively for that and start to think about how you can start to do events that bring people together and work creatively together. We work with, it's very much in line with Battersea Power Station, but on a smaller scale with Lock 29, which is in Banbury, which was a huge disused BHS space, laid empty for years, costing stupid amounts of money to the council who own the shopping centre until they decided to reinvest and turn it into what it is now. And it's just turned 4. And it is a community hub. So it's got 13 retail spaces, including street food. It's got a bar, a boutique cinema. It has little pop-up units that come up at the weekend for really tiny businesses who act as incubator spaces. Every single business that sits within this space is a local Banbury or kind of Banbury area business. And then in that space, what happens is that you have therefore 14 really good marketeers for the space itself. And how that can relate to an individual shop is in the selection of supplier that you bring in. Because it may be that you want to bring in a really well-known brand, and I'm certainly not going to be here telling you not to do that because customers know them and they might come in to buy them. So there's always a benefit. But the benefit of working with someone a bit smaller, somebody who's growing, somebody who has the shared ethos and vision of you as a retailer, is that they are more likely to be an ambassador for your space as well. It's about building relationships between supplier and retailer, so everybody is kind of sharing those experiences as well.
Yeah, and I think landlords are going to have to, understand that a lot more as well.
You see in shopping centres now, completely mixed use. You've got accommodation, you've got dance schools moving in there, post office are moving in there, community hubs, second-hand shops. Those retail is looking different, and it's because we have to work differently and think differently in terms of how we engage. But you can really benefit from that as well if you become a leading voice in your area for that change, and that can really help as well. I think I'm just looking at the time.
Yeah,
Should we look at future trends? Do we need to touch on data? Probably a bit, and how you can actually grab data and how important that is.
Yeah, I think it's really important that we continue to, we talked a lot about omnichannel, so blending your online with your physical presence, but that is also means that you need to capture the data of your customers. And I think loyalty schemes are a really good way of doing that, because that way you're not just asking them for their email address, but you're also giving them something. You can create photo opportunities, perhaps. I've seen shops do a window where people keep taking pictures outside it. That will spread too, because they will follow you on your social media. So it is data capturing, not as good as someone's email, but you can do several data capture ways. I think it's really important, because you need to be able to remind them to come back.
I completely uphold the needing to get people's email addresses and give them an incentive for joining your email list, whatever that is, because that's absolutely where you can bring people in for in-store experiences. You can you capture them, you build loyalty, you give back, it breeds trust. Is hugely important in terms of data. Give me one prediction, because I don't know whether we will get questions, but you're very welcome to give us questions if you want. But one trend that you see happening in terms of high street?
I just think it's going to continue to go this way, all the things that we touched on. So it's not like one trend, I suppose, but I just think that this mixed retail space is going to become much, much more important, and your customers care about it. So you need to care about it, and that transparency is like the key. You don't have to do everything perfectly, but you need transparency.
I think technology is really embracing technology and learning how technology can enhance your retail experience is absolutely critical. AI has completely changed the shape of retail. It's changed the shape of everything, and actually stores, tiny businesses can really use it to really help, even in the smallest of ways. It can really help you be more productive, reach more customers. So not ignoring that, and then just, exactly as Therese said, transparency, authenticity, and being values led are the things that will stand you apart. That is what makes your business different, is you and what you care about and what you stand for, and having the confidence to lead with that is really important. So, quick recap, which might inspire some questions if you don't want to run off and get yourself a coffee. But, I think thinking positively. There's no question things are hard. Rising costs for everybody, but particularly bricks and mortar retail and suppliers. This industry is being hit hard by those changes. But seeing everything, working out where the opportunities lie at all times, and having the confidence to really create an omni-channel experience and allowing online to work to enhance your physical retail space as well is really important. And stories.
Yeah, and I actually think if you're from a smaller retailer, it's easier for you to do than it is for a big retailer.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So, has anyone got any questions? You can make it very specific about your own business. If there is a issue that you're currently facing that we can help with, it might help somebody else. But don't worry if not. We'll stay around for a bit anyway. So if you actually just want to come and have a chat, we're really nice people. You're welcome. Yeah, go on, Chris.
Hey.
Oh, hang on, we've got a mic.
Hello. Oh, that's always a bit scary, isn't it? You spoke a lot about sustainability and being transparent. I'm aware that obviously there are a lot of small businesses out there who might not have the funds to be able to do those reports that you mentioned with Lucy and Yak. What kind of advice would you give to those smaller retailers who might say, right now, that isn't like a massive priority? How do we navigate that kind of challenge of, because it can be quite expensive?
Yeah. Go on, you go.
I would put it, part of it, I think that you can put back on your suppliers and ask them. So if you stock some bigger brands, you can ask them what they're doing, and then you can share that with your audience, because they will have created it. Maybe internally, they might have their own impact report if you have suppliers that has that. Or you can ask them for key points about like how their products are made, ask them to educate you, and then lean into their stories and why you picked them versus someone else. I think that could work really well. And then like people are very nosy, right? Like they care about the little things. So you could just like show that you recycle things, and it doesn't have to be a big deal. It could be a funny thing too. You can share the mundane. People are interested, so it doesn't have to be a big report, but it can show the behind the scenes of your business.
I think as well, it's about leading with your kind of values and what your ambitions are. And I think people really do understand as a small business, it's impossible to make those great big wholesale changes, which would require enormous investment, and you probably don't know, you might not own your building, so you can't do solar panel. You're therefore, there's only so much kind of carbon that you can reduce because you're beholden to your landlord who right now doesn't care. So there's all these things that to be considered, but there are tiny little steps, and I suppose it's about transparency, and it's not important that you go out and suddenly have a whole campaign going, I'm really sustainable business, when you're not. People are, if you're going out and making those claims, people will sense check it, and then you're in trouble. But maybe then really it's about the decisions that you make in your business that are led by a set of values that are going to be relevant to your clients. And that could be as simple as there is a percentage of the suppliers that we use that are going to be within a mile of radius, because I want to showcase and give opportunities to businesses from my county. But then I'm also going to put them alongside bigger, like nationwide brands or global brands, because then there's something for everybody. But what I'm doing is I'm really supporting these businesses, and these are the stories that I tell. And that in itself is a sustainable, values-led decision that can really enhance how the customer engages with you.
Any other questions?
No? Okay, thank you very much, everybody. We'll hang around if anyone wants to come and have a chat. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much.